November 17th, 2014, and this is the second video that I'm making about some of these different government things that have been done. And I just mentioned that Brian Gross was definitely at the Bechtolds' house, and that's definitely true. And he's a cop. I don't know that he was a detective at that time, but he was definitely already a cop. And what happened later with him is, here he was completely involved with the Bechtolds. And then George and Janet's son, Robin Bechtold, when he raped me, and I was reporting rapes by Josh Gatoff and Robin Bechtold, Detective Gross conveniently dropped my case and tried to intimidate me and force me into not reporting it and said that he wasn't going to work further on it. And at first, he acted like he was going to do something when I just said I wanted to report Josh Gatoff, who was somebody who actually had worked with the Bechtolds and who I saw in the Bechtolds' house. But then when I mentioned and brought up to include Robin Bechtold, he completely shut the door on me. And and then what was really odd is he said, is his last words to me, Detective Brian Gross's words to me, were, after all these different government people, they'd rape me and then steal my coat from me. He said to me, looking at my coat, after telling me he wasn't going to do anything about this rape claim that I was making, rape report, he was saying, he said to me, you might want to get another coat, Cameo, and smirking about it. So, he's definitely dirty. He's a dirty cop. He doesn't deserve to have the job he has, and he went from being some kind of a cop to being a detective of the sexual abuse unit about the time that all these different young men felt that they were free to rape me whenever they wanted, and knowing who was going to get assigned to this. And after he refused to do anything about my rape reports, Detective Brian Gross got promoted. He got a massive promotion. And he went from being head, or a detective at least, of the sexual assault unit at Portland PD to being head of the murder department, because that's what everybody wants. Everyone wants a liar who rapes little girls and covers for those who torture and rape little girls, who then become adults and get raped again by the same people. Everybody can trust someone like Detective Brian Gross handling murder cases, because when some of those rapists and torturers of kids who are profiting off of little children, when they want to bump somebody off, who can they call? Well, they can call Ghostbuster Agent Detective Brian Gross. So these people are pretty sick and mentally ill, and they've definitely gone backwards and forwards trying to claim that I'm mentally ill, because for obvious reasons. They're the criminals. They were the adults. I was the kid. And they have no alibis or excuses other than to try to call victims mentally ill. That's all they have. They have that, and then they have attempts to try to frame innocent people. So, good luck, Portland, Oregon, with all of your murder cases. Another person that was there at the Bechtolds' house was Officer Wright. And this is the same officer who works for the Oregon State Police, and he was driving over to, he has driven over to the Coquille, Oregon area more than one time when I have lived here as a young adult and also as a preteen and teen. And anytime he was showing up to do something, it was to sexually harass me and make an attempt to basically run me over or to intimidate me by getting his vehicle so close to me that I had to jump out of the way or he would have hit me. And he was, in every situation that he's done this, he's repeated the same thing that he's done, and he's yelled the same things out of the window at me, or very close to the same approximate things out of the window. He's practiced his attempt to hit me with his cop car at the same points along the freeway out here, and he's also coordinated to have his assistant state patrol officer, a woman with the last name Adams, showing up to be his backup every time he's done this. And whenever, in the situations that he's shown up to do this to me, it's always been at some point when I am just starting to talk about government corruption or have made some sort of a comment about the Bechtold family, usually something to do with Robin. And when he assaulted me or Kate Middleton, and when he assaulted me at the Bechtolds' house, I don't know if he was a state patrol cop at that time. He didn't go into their house wearing a uniform, like a cop uniform, but I knew he was a cop of some type. But I didn't know who he worked for exactly. And I was seated in the in this hard back chair that I've already talked about, and tied to it. And he came in and he was mad at me over something about Robin Bechtold. And said something like, "You think you're smarter than Robin?" Or, I can't remember. It was something to do with acting like he was going to protect or defend Robin Bechtold. And from what I remember, that's what it was. Could have possibly included saying something about Katie Middleton or the Middletons. But it was about one or the other or both of them. And he came up to me and he choked me. I was tied to this chair, and he stormed right over to me from the doorway where he entered, and put his hands around my neck and started strangling me. It wasn't like he just sort of grabbed me around the neck and then let go. But later, when he was chasing me along the freeway and stalking me and doing these things to me when I was in Coquille, each time that he would stop me with this other officer Adams with me, he was grabbing me by the throat again. Both times. He wanted to reach out and basically put his hand underneath my jaw and do this sort of a thing to be demeaning to me. After he had, assaulted me and tried to run into me and was yelling sexual harassment comments out the window at me. And in both situations, he gave me a citation for over $100, claiming that I was jaywalking. And that's when I was trying to get away from him, because he is a seriously messed up nutcase. And he has stalked me 3 different times out in Coquille, Oregon, with the same other officer, Adams. And he was present at the Bechtolds' house, acting like the little illegal cop bouncer, protection for the Bechtold family. And that occurred when I was younger, as I've said, between like age 8 and 10. So when he strangled me when I was sitting in the chair, he put his hands around my neck, and while I was tied to the chair, tried to raise me, lift me off the ground chair, and with me in the chair, and all in one kind of, tied up together. He was strangling me so hard he was lifting me and the chair off the ground. And threatening me. So this was kind of around the time that then George was using his martial arts skills out on me while I was still tied to the chair. They had a few different cops coming in, punching me in the stomach while I was tied to the chair. Like they would alternate between forcing me to do blowjobs and then getting a group of them to come in and beat me up for no reason. Other than punishment and intimidation to tell me not to tell anyone, and to quit resisting them and being raped and that kind of thing. And so he was definitely someone else who was a Oregon State Trooper that the Bechtels were connected to. And another person that I remember being there, and well, the Allens showed up briefly, but I don't remember them being there that long. But like Dave Allen, Monica's dad, and Rebecca Allen, I don't know if Rebecca was there, but one or both, the Allens showed up at some point in the backyard. They had Justin Timberlake show up in the backyard, doing some of the same kinds of weird, going back and forth from a house, talking to adults, and picking up tapes of my singing and that kind of thing. And then they had possibly, but I'm not positive, but it does come to my mind that they possibly had the Middletons out there, like the actual UK English Middletons. And the reason I think that is because, or it comes to mind, is because I do remember Janet telling Carol, asking Carol if she wanted tea. And it wasn't Carol, it wasn't a different Carol. This Carol that she was referring to looked exactly like Carol Middleton. So, I think it's remotely possible that it wasn't Carol Middleton. But I know that some people who had Australian accents went out to that backyard. I also know that there were some people who had British accents who went back there. And it's possible that this Carol that Janet was offering tea to was really Carol Middleton. And I sort of remember someone shorter, like Mike Middleton there too. Could have been Forrest Hanser that was out there instead of Mike Middleton. And if Janet was lying about names, maybe that other woman was more like someone like Melinda Gates, or someone who or some other person who vaguely resembled Carol Middleton, but it really did look like Carol Middleton this one time. And so then it came to my mind, because of that, it was came to my mind that these people were coordinating a lot of these attacks against me over Katie Middleton. And I do believe Officer Wright did say something about Katie Middleton. He said something about Katie, and he said something about Robin, both. So I knew that somehow they were coordinating with the Middleton family. I also have a much stronger feeling that it is true that Gary Goldsmith was there at the